Cody Bellinger made a huge impact on the Cubs this year, but what are the chances that they will really be able to get him signed? He's got the toughest agent to deal with in sports, and Scott Boras, and he's going to want a lot of money and a lot of years. We're going to get into that and why it is important that the Cubs get him back. And what do you do if you don't get him back? This is the Cubs baseball channel. If you're not already part of our roster, it's really easy to do. Like and subscribe. And don't forget, this show is brought to you by the Southern League champion Tennessee Smokies. And you can get some of their great gear now. All right, there you go with Chad Anderson. I'm Mick Gillispie. And guys, the thing that you want to talk about when it comes to Cody Bellinger is his ability to change things and to make a difference as far as being a star player. And the bottom line is this, is that the Cubs got him from the Dodgers. Obviously, the Dodgers non-tendered him. They signed him as a free agent, 1 year, $17 million, a pillow year deal, where he was going to have to go out there and prove himself. And that's exactly what he did, Chad. He went out there and proved himself. He put up numbers that were comparable to his MVP season. Not quite as good, but they were comparable. They were right there. So now the Cubs want him back. Are they going to be able to get him back? And that's the question, because he's got a tough agent to deal with, and they're going to go after as much money and the biggest deal they can get.
Yeah, and he's only 28 years old. You know, he's still coming into his prime. He just had such a good front end of his career. And also don't forget, Mick, he gets $1 million for comeback player of the year. Like, that's got to be him, right? Is there anybody even close? Like, I can't think of anyone. Is there anyone even close to that? So, I mean, this is a situation where the Cubs really have to sit down, because we've talked about it. The success that the Cubs had this year is going to really impact the fans' expectations going into 2024. And so the Cubs just have to be so careful. We've had the Pete Alonso talk.
Right.
Now we've got Cody Bellinger extended or signing him. You've got all these prospects. You got these young guys that you want to get into the lineup. Mm-hmm. And so the Cubs have to be just extremely careful in how they do this and pulling the right levers and the right strings, because, and you've got an opportunity here to really, really set yourself up for a strong run, because let's admit it, right? The Central is not the strongest division. No. You're not going up against the Braves. You're not going up against the Dodgers. You're not going up against Baltimore or Tampa right now.
Yeah.
You've got a shot to really take hold of just a division that is begging for somebody to run with it, like the Brewers have over the last few years. So with Belly, I mean, I look at it and I just go, okay, a guy always worries me when he goes into that contract year.
Me too.
It's then, you perform. Now we overpay you, and now we're screwed 3 years in, right? And just that's what you get so worried about in Major League Baseball. But the one thing I love about Belly is he's only 28.
Yeah.
And you saw guys with deals like Pujols, for example. I'll just use that one with the Angels, and I think it was around 10 years, $250 million, something like that.
Yeah, terrible.
And that was, 10 years ago or 12 years ago when he signed that deal. And everybody knew that was a bad deal. That was a bad contract. And so I just look at it with Belly, and I hate 10-year deals. I hate 8-year deals. But if you can get a guy when he's going from 28 to, say, 33, 34 years old, to me, that's a guy the Cubs have to grab. But my personal opinion is, if it's going to extend past that, I get really uneasy about signing someone.
And the Cubs have done a good job of not getting themselves locked into some of these terrible long-term deals. Yeah. Where you're looking at Miguel Cabrera, who's a Hall of Famer, but I mean, this year he was just like a mascot. Like, he couldn't play. I mean, let's be honest. Like, he's out there with his surfboard and, he's out there playing, but he looked like a softball guy and not a baseball player. And last year he wasn't much better, so you're in these deals. The Cubs have a lot of young players that are up and coming, which, by the way, congratulations to Pete Crow Armstrong for winning the Defensive Player of the Year in the minor leagues. That's even bigger than a Gold Glove. But I don't know. I mean, I think that they're going to be smart with the way that they do this deal. And if it turns into one of these, he's getting 10 years and we want to pay him 7, then they may move on. Something interesting, though, is that Pete Alonso hired Boras as his agent now. So get ready for that, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's like, was he going to be traded to the Cubs or not?
Yeah.
A lot of Mets fans have gotten on the channel and they're like, keep your hands off our polar bear. They don't want to see him go. And they're already mad about Pete Crow Armstrong being traded to the Cubs. And I don't blame them because, Pete Crow Armstrong would have been electric in New York. He's going to be electric in Chicago, or unless they trade him. But it's a decision that they're going to have to make. What are things going to look like? Because now you have a prospect outfielder. The Cubs have an abundance of really good young up and coming outfielders that I think are going to be pushing for playing time. And I know Seiya had a great year. We'll have to do a video on him, but the second half of his season, after he got benched for a few days, he was as good as anyone in baseball. Ian Happ always seems to be up and down to me. I prefer maybe a platoon role for him, and you get in some of these guys like Canario or maybe Jonathan Perlaza, who's in the minor leagues, a switch hitter who's pretty good. They traded Nelson Velasquez. You just hope that if they're going to trade players that have a lot of talent, that they'll get more than just middle relievers. Like you would want like a starter, a back end guy. But the Cubs right now have one of the strongest farm systems in baseball. And a lot of those players are double and triple A, which means they're going to be pushing for big league time. So I don't know if that factors into the decision to bring in Belly, but I love what Jed Hoyer said about Belly. He said he sat him down at the end of the season and he was like, you came in and within a couple of months, you won over the Cubs fans with the hard work, with the way that you play the game. He's infectious. It's not just the batting average and the RBIs. It's not just the on-base percentage. It's the way that he plays defense, first base or in the outfield. You could also use him at DH. He runs hard. He's just a likable player. He plays a very blue-collar game.
He does. There's also this fantastic website that I've kind of used when you're determining market value for baseball players. It's spottrack.com, and I'm sure it goes for other sports too, but I love it for baseball. So it compares and gives you a market value based on other contracts signed by other players in the game and kind of assesses their statistics compared to these guys from the last couple of years and the 2 years leading up to their contract. So they don't necessarily just take a contract year. They kind of take 2 years leading up to that free agency year.
Right.
And this site, you can break it all down and scroll through. I mean, you can get real nerdy, and I really like that. But it says that their market value, this is just a third party using analytics, right? And it's comparing guys like Michael Conforto, Brandon Nimmo, Chris Bryant actually is on here as far as comparing to Belly. And it's showing these guys and their hits per game, RBIs per game, strikeouts, OPS, weighted OBP, the WAR, all those different metrics. And it spits out. So, Mick, I want to say, would you sign Belly for this? 5 years, $113 million.
All day.
Right? Like I saw that number and I said, if you get that, that's a slam dunk. Now here's their second one. Okay. Would you sign him for this? 7 years, $149 million.
See, that'd be tougher. I'd rather give him more money.
But it's
over
the same average
years.
Salary. It's the same average salary.
I get it. But I mean, 7 years. I mean, I don't know. I think that's as deep as you can go. I mean, they gave.
I misspoke. It's $1.5 million more per year for the 5 year.
Right.
So barely off.
Yeah, right. And I got that though when you said it. I look at Dansby Swanson is about as far as I would want to go with a contract. They gave him 7 years, and at the time I was worried that they were going to sign one of these guys like Correa. I still not enamored with Jameson Taillon. I know we saw the better Taillon at the end of the year, but he's paid an awful lot of money to be a mediocre pitcher. When you average it out, he's probably less than mediocre, and he's getting paid a lot of money for that. You've got to develop those guys in your farm system, because I would rather you go and put a lot of money in to a sure thing guy, an ace like a John Lester, than give me a guy that I just don't know what I'm going to get from start to start, like Taillon.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And I'm kind of like you. I would be fine if you did like 5 years and 125 million.
Right.
To me, the extra few million, not that millions are just chump change, but when you're talking in terms of baseball contracts, it does kind of become chump change, right? Or at least to
Hmm.
me and you, you're like,
Well, it is.
why not just sign him for an extra few million a year? So I would like that. Like if you're using this website and if this website does anything similar to what you could get out of a Scott Boras client, 5 years, 125.
Hmm.
Like to me, let's sign up today. Then we can look at Polar Bear or some other starters, or
Right.
maybe you still have your prospects. Maybe you could still go get Soto, and you go Soto Bellinger instead of Alonzo
Hmm.
Bellinger.
Yeah.
But whatever the case is, I'm like you. When I saw that as the market val, I was all for it. You start getting into 7 and 8 years, and I start to think, man, you could spend the money elsewhere.
Yeah, and I wonder if a team like the Yankees is going to swoop in and go, "Hey, we don't care. We'll give you the 10 years," and they'll be paying him for 3 that he's not even playing. I just look at the Jason Hayward deal being one of those contract signings that I want to say like 5 years, he just wasn't good enough to get that kind of money. You got Anthony Rizzo way underpaid at first base, and you got a guy in right field that's making probably 15, 20 times what he was worth, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Rizzo contract was brilliant. The
Yeah,
Cubs
great.
did such a good job locking down Rizzo as early as they did for as long as they did. But yeah, you're right. And that's where a few shows ago, you back on the channel, watch some of our videos where I would talk about how Theo did such a good job of getting the Cubs to be winners. But then he also had some horrific signings and trades
I know.
that came with it, and you just step back and look and think about some of those deals. Like you
Yeah,
gave up Eloy, you gave up Dylan Cease,
I know.
you sign Hayward, you
Yep.
end up with Quintana.
It's like he
There's
didn't
just
value the minor league system either. They stopped developing starting pitching. It almost felt like he was just desperate to get that second World Series to
yeah,
the point where
it does.
they just kind of like mortgaged their future. And I got to give Jed Hoyer, who I do like Jed Hoyer, and honestly I like Theo too, but I think Jed Hoyer's done such a good job of just being patient and waiting for the right deal. Like Bellinger, he said that they kind of targeted him last year going into the offseason. They looked and said, hey, there's a chance that we could get him. So a win for the Cubs there all the way around. And we'll see. I know a lot of you guys want Bellinger signed. We'd love to see him. But at the same time, if you go more than 7 years, I'd say let him go if it was me.
No, I'm with you. And to make sure we reiterate, I'll forever be grateful to Theo for the World Series.
Oh
Like
yeah, look,
we don't
I
need
agree.
that to get lost, right?
No,
But I think it's like what you said. They were then chasing their bet,
yeah,
and they kept throwing good money after bad.
yeah,
Even the Kimbrel deal. Kimbrel wasn't the same for a while as a Cub, and they even shipped him off to the White Sox on the South side. So I just look at it, and that's the thing is they got to figure this out. And that was Theo's deal. He didn't develop starting pitching because he focused on hitters and then would spend money on pitching,
hmm,
but
yeah,
they never developed it. And now you do
mm-mm.
actually have a little bit of a chance to develop with Steele and Wicks, and then some other arms that are
Yeah.
coming through
Cade
as well.
Horton.
Cade,
Yeah,
yeah, I
keep an
mean
eye
you
on
got other
him.
guys coming.
Ben Brown. All right, he's Chad Anderson. I'm Mick Gillispie. Again, guys, be part of our roster here on the Cubs baseball channel. We'll talk to you soon.